Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive, that Reddit thread, asking what commonplace things have just vanished from our lives over the past 20 years.
Yeah, it's a great question.
It is.
It's not just about reminiscing about the good old days. It's
Yeah.
about how, these things disappearing actually reflect, bigger changes, in tech, in society, even like our environment.
Right. And it gets you thinking about what will people 20 years from now be looking back on and saying, wow, they used to have those.
Exactly.
Let's start with some tech things, I guess, that
Mm.
probably, won't shock anybody.
Yeah.
Remember landline phones, like with the cords and busy signals,
Yeah.
or even like those TV guide channels that would scroll through, program listings all day and tempt you with those like late night infomercials.
Oh, man. Relics of a bygone era. But I mean, you know, their disappearance makes sense when you think about like the smartphone, right?
Yeah.
Like suddenly you've got one device that can do phone calls, internet browsing navigation. Yeah.
All that stuff that used to require separate gadgets.
Totally.
And it's amazing how fast that happened. Like even those GPS devices standalone,
Oh, yeah.
they were everywhere, like not that long ago.
I remember painstakingly like programming it, an address and
Yeah.
then missing a turn and that robotic voice being like recalculating.
Yeah.
Speaking of technology, though, there was a comment in the thread that really caught my eye, and it was disappearance of video game cheat codes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Remember those like cryptic button combinations,
Oh, yeah.
that would like unlock secret levels or give you infinite lives?
Yeah.
I mean, I used to spend hours scouring, gaming magazines for those.
Yeah, it makes sense though when you think about it. Like, games have changed, right?
Yeah.
Online connectivity means they're always evolving, updates and patches and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Makes those cheat codes obsolete. And also, there's a big focus on fairness, like in multiplayer games.
Right.
So you can't have people unlocking advantages.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. It's logical. But, I still have that like twinge of nostalgia for those days. Like, there was something magical about discovering that cheat code
For sure.
and feeling like you were, in on a secret.
Totally.
Um, but, as technology marches on, some things inevitably, fall by the wayside.
For sure.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about some social changes that the thread brought up. One commenter was lamenting the loss of a sense of community.
Hmm.
Like they were talking about how kids used to roam their neighborhoods, everyone knew their neighbors, and there was this, stronger sense of connection back then.
Right. Well, and it resonates with a lot of people, I think,
Yeah.
especially those who did grow up in that era, But it's also like you have to be careful about romanticizing the past, right?
Right.
Like technology and safety concerns, they probably do play a role in how we connect now, but every generation kind of experiences community differently, right?
Yeah.
It's just about like finding ways to connect, in a meaningful way.
In whatever that context is.
Exactly. Like even online communities.
Yeah.
They can offer a sense of belonging, even if it's not exactly the same as like face to face.
Totally. I mean, it's
Right.
not about like trying to recreate
Yeah.
the past.
Yeah.
It's about finding ways to build community that feel real and relevant,
Yeah, for sure.
to how we live today.
Totally.
Okay, so this next one, someone pointed out the dwindling number of World War II veterans,
Oh, yeah.
which is, kind of a powerful, reminder of the passage of time.
Yeah.
And also, that we're losing those lived experiences,
Absolutely. And they leave such a void, not
Yeah.
just like in personal connections, but in our, collective memory.
Yeah.
Their stories, their perspective on a world we can only imagine, those are treasures we need to preserve.
It's a good reminder to cherish, the older generations and to actively seek out those opportunities to connect, with people who have witnessed history.
Right.
Now, on a slightly lighter note, someone mentioned losing their hair,
Oh,
which, of course, we all face eventually.
yeah.
But speaking of things disappearing that have a more like tangible impact on our lives,
Mm-hmm.
someone brought up, the increasingly elusive dream of affordable housing.
Yeah, that's a disappearance with huge consequences, right? Like makes you think about bigger trends in the economy and priorities. Like what are we really valuing and who benefits from how things are now?
Right. It's not just nostalgia. It's, about the challenges people face when they can't even afford, basic necessities.
Sure.
Now let's talk about like physical objects, things we can hold in our hands that have been replaced by digital versions.
Okay.
Remember CDs, those shiny
Yeah.
discs?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
the crinkled, well-worn paper maps that we'd take on road trips.
Yeah, I mean, digital media and the internet have like totally changed how we consume information and entertainment.
Right. So convenient.
Super convenient.
Yeah.
But we did lose some of those tactile experiences,
Right.
like browsing in a record store, picking out a CD, unwrapping it,
Yep.
reading the liner notes.
Yeah, there was this sense of anticipation and discovery
So
that you don't get, just scrolling through a digital library.
for sure.
And don't even get me started on the joy of unfolding a giant paper map
Oh, yeah.
and tracing your route, like with your finger.
Yeah.
The anticipation as you get closer to your
Right.
destination.
It is interesting, though, how some of those old technologies are coming back, like
Yeah.
vinyl records.
Yeah.
They've made a huge comeback, right?
Yeah.
People want that, more tactile, immersive experience.
Yeah. Makes you wonder what else might come back.
Yeah.
Like what things do we think are outdated now that might, have a resurgence?
Right. Like maybe there's just something authentic about those analog experiences that we miss.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to how trends can be cyclical,
For sure.
like our appreciation for things can ebb and flow over time. But some disappearances are more subtle. They kind of sneak up on us.
Yeah.
Have you noticed like fewer lightning bugs on warm summer nights or butterflies in gardens?
That's funny you mentioned that because that's actually like a known thing. It's called the windshield phenomenon.
Really?
Yeah, like people used to have to clean bugs off their windshields all the time.
Right.
But now it's not as common.
Ah.
Seems like a small thing, but it points to a decline in insect populations.
Oh, wow.
Which is a big deal for, our ecosystems.
Yeah.
Shows how, like, just our personal observations can actually tell us about bigger trends.
It's kind of chilling.
Yeah.
And speaking of chilling, let's talk about the disappearance of things we can't touch but are still so important.
Okay.
Things that are fundamental to our sense of self.
Yeah.
One commenter just wrote privacy.
Yeah.
And, they're not wrong.
It's a complex issue, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many factors, the Patriot Act, government surveillance, social media. The way companies collect our data,
Right.
it makes you think about the trade-offs we're making for convenience or security, right?
Yeah.
Are we really aware of the information we're sharing?
Right.
And what could happen with it?
Yeah, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed by it all and just say, well, I have nothing to hide.
Sure.
But, there's that quote by Edward Snowden that says, arguing that you don't care about privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different than saying you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say. It kind of reframes privacy, as a right, not just a preference.
Right, like a fundamental right that
Yeah.
makes a free and open society possible.
Yeah, it's a crucial point.
Totally.
When we give up our privacy, we're giving up control over our lives.
Right,
Slippery slope.
for sure.
Now let's explore another intangible loss that came up, and that's the decline of customer service discretion.
Oh, interesting.
Remember when, employees could kind of help you out, bend the rules a little
Yeah.
in the name of good service?
Yep.
One commenter was talking about how airlines used to, go above and beyond to reroute flights or accommodate special requests,
Right.
things you rarely see these days.
It probably has to do with standardization and automation, right?
Right.
Companies probably did the math and realized that it's not cost effective to let employees make those decisions.
Yeah.
But it does make things feel impersonal.
Yeah, it makes you feel less like a valued customer and more just, another transaction
For sure.
in the system.
Totally.
Okay, this next one is interesting, and I'm curious to get your take on it. Someone mentioned the disappearance of a sense of shame,
Oh, wow.
which, could be interpreted in many
Yeah,
ways.
that's a provocative statement.
Yeah.
Could be about social media and oversharing. Personal boundaries are blurred and what was once private is now public.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's like a shifting moral landscape
Right.
where things that used to be taboo are now more accepted.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Circling back to more tangible losses, one commenter mentioned the decline of like those one-man bands, inventors, tinkerers, entrepreneurs who created unique and quirky products
Yeah,
all on their own.
right.
Like they felt there's less of that independent creative spirit now.
Yeah, could be because big corporations are so dominant now.
Yeah.
It's hard to compete.
Yeah.
You need access to capital manufacturing distribution.
Right.
Starting a business is tough.
It makes you wonder if we've lost something,
For sure.
Remember those as seen on TV gadgets?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, some of them are ridiculous.
Yeah.
But they represented a kind of like unfiltered creativity that you don't really see much anymore.
And maybe the pendulum will swing back,
Right.
Maybe we'll see a resurgence of interest in handmade, unique things as people look for more personalized experiences.
I hope so.
There's just something special about those things that mass-produced items don't have.
Yeah. And it speaks to the importance of supporting, independent creators and businesses.
Totally.
Voting with our wallets.
For sure.
To nurture that entrepreneurial spirit.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this part of our, exploration into disappearing acts, what are some of the key takeaways for you?
Well, first of all, it's just amazing how much has changed in 20 years.
Yeah.
Technology, social norms, our environment, it's all constantly in flux.
Right.
But it's also striking how these seemingly small everyday disappearances can actually reveal really profound shifts in our values, priorities, how we live.
It's a good reminder to be mindful of the present, appreciate what we have and think critically about, the changes we're embracing. I agree. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and not realize how fast things are changing.
Totally.
But by being aware of these shifts, we can make more conscious choices about how we want to live.
For sure.
And what kind of future we want to create. It's like we're holding up a mirror and saying, are we becoming the future we want to see?
Right.
And that kind of leads us to a final question for our listeners out there. What seemingly insignificant things from today might we miss in the future? Like what's on the verge of disappearing that we haven't even noticed yet?
Yeah, it makes you think, right?
Yeah.
Like pay attention to the little things, appreciate what we have, because sometimes you don't know what you've got till it's gone.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder to, live in the present and savor those little moments, that make life rich and meaningful.
Absolutely.
Speaking of savoring moments, I wanted to take a second to, thank you, our listeners.
Yes.
We're so grateful for your support, for joining us on these deep dives, into these fascinating and thought-provoking topics.
Yeah, we love exploring these ideas with you.
And if you're enjoying, our explorations, we would love for you to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. It really helps other curious minds like yours find the podcast and join the conversation.
Absolutely. And if you're looking for, more visual explorations of these kinds of topics, be sure to check out Shauna Pelage's YouTube channel.
Yes.
She's fantastic.
She's brilliant.
Really brings these big ideas to life, visually.
Her videos are a feast for the mind and the eyes.
For sure.
She just has this knack for making complex topics accessible and entertaining.
Yeah, and her passion is contagious.
So until next time, keep those minds curious, those hearts open, and, those senses alert to the ever-changing world around us.
Yeah, stay curious out there.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive, into the mysteries and marvels of human experience.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery.
See you next time.
We'll see you next time, right here on Voices of the Soul. And remember, the beauty of a deep dive like this is it's just the beginning.
Right.
It's about sparking that curiosity and getting you thinking and hopefully, inspiring you to explore these ideas even more.
Exactly. Think of this as like a jumping off point.
Yeah.
What really stuck with you, what questions are still swirling around in your head,
Right.
Do some more digging research, talk to people about it.
It's all about, making those connections and expanding our understanding.
For sure.
And that's what Voices of the Soul is all about.
It is, recognizing that we're all part of this bigger conversation, this shared human experience,
Yeah.
And it's richer when we have different perspectives and we're open to, engaging with the world.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us, everyone, on this deep dive. We'll see you next time, right here on Voices of the Soul.